me, Amy. I'm back here as your happy book friend. We are going to talk today about one of my favorite series, and of course that is American Girl. And one of my favorite characters, I love them all, is Kirsten. And so we're going to talk about her books. This is going to be a really deep dive. We're going to go into everything that I own of Kirsten. So this might be broken up and released over a couple of sessions, or we might just throw it all up at once. We'll see what YouTube does and how it works. But so let's begin with Meet Kirsten. The Meet books are always the best way to start introducing a girl to the American Girl series. I love Meet Kirsten in particular because it is one of the first books that I remember just like making me cry, but it was also because I was going through life and I was moving, not across the world like Kirsten did, but I was moving to a new town, and I had that feeling of I'm gonna miss my friends and I'm not gonna see them again. And spoiler alert on a 40-year-old book, Kirsten's best friend passes away in this book. We see everything. I mean, even her little precious little coffin. It's all in there, and we see it all. And it's so precious and so genuine how the author handles it and talks about the death and the disease and the heartache and the frustration of moving to a new culture and a new world. And it's beautiful. There's a moment where Kirsten gets lost in the city and she doesn't know anyone and she has nowhere to turn and she can't speak the language, and to see that in a children's book is very unique and helped me to connect with Kirsten because, oh, she's human, she's making mistakes and things are happening and life is happening around her. And one of the things that I love about Kirsten is that her family is Christian, and they have a saying. Mama tells her all the time to have heart, and by that she means be brave and trust in the Lord and it's going to be okay. And you see their faith played out in subtle ways throughout the entire series, and that's one of the things that all of the original 6 American Girls, I would even go so far as to say Kit as well, they all have a church scene or a Christian, not a religious, a Christian celebration that they celebrate, and it's something that they do, some part of their Christian heritage, and you see that in all of the original 6. I would really have to go back and check Kit's, but I think Kit has I think her Christmas book has a scene in a church as well. And so it's neat, and it was comforting to me as a kid because I didn't think about it, but this was like the first series that I saw where the characters were going to church and were talking about God in their books or in their life, and it really it did impact me in a positive way in that regard. And so Kirsten moves across the world. She's already on the ship when we meet her, and then she and her family travel to Minnesota. They go through New York and kind of an Ellis Island-esque thing, but it's never blatantly said Ellis Island. And then they end up in their happy little farm in Minnesota with their family. She has a uncle who had already moved, and he has a new wife and children that she's never met, and they move into a little hut to be near them. And this was a little girl's first kind of introduction to the homestead and settler's life and everything. It fit that same idea and concept as like Laura Ingalls Wilder, the Little House on the Prairie books. Katie Woodlawn would be another one that would fall under the same category. Laura Ingalls, her books actually take place later than Kirsten's. Kirsten's are pre-Civil War. This is 1854 is when her stories begin, and they end about 1856 or so. And whereas Laura Ingalls, obviously, she was alive much later, and than that. Hers take place more in the 1880s. But there's still, I mean, looking at it that way, there was not a lot of differences. The West, the wilderness in America had not really changed much in those 30 years. So so it still kind of fits that thing. And Oregon Trail, by the time I found American Girl, Oregon Trail was a thing. Well, right after I found American Girl, I found Oregon Trail. They're right there tied together, and so this fits that same niche, and it's great. I love the Kirsten books. Of course, you know, blonde hair, blue eyed. Everybody thought that Kirsten would be my girl, and she is not. I've never actually owned a Kirsten doll. Something that I'm still kind of semi-sad about. This is a hardcover. This is my only hardcover, I think, that of all of my 6 original books, like out of all the girls that I have, I think this is my only hardcover. Not sure where I picked it up, but when I saw that it was a hardcover, I was like, mine. Because they did not produce hardcovers for super long. I think Josefina was the last one who they produced hardcovers for, maybe Kit. And so most of my books are paperback, but it's, and it has a dust jacket. The dust jacket is still there. Isn't that pretty? Don't you just want to touch it? It's lovely. So then we have Kirsten Learns a Lesson, which is Kirsten's school story. So our meet stories all take place in like July to August or so. Our Learns a Lesson stories are our school stories. So they all start in after Labor Day or early September. They go into October. Sometimes they might go into November or so. It just kind of depends on the girl. But our meet book introduces us to the girl. Our Learns a Lesson book introduces us to her school, her education, and what that is like, because every little girl across all the generations has had some form of education. Maybe it's not formal reading and writing, maybe it's learning how to sew or knit or something else, but you have an education of some sort. It happens. And so that's what our school story is. In our school story, we also meet a best friend. And I wish that they had made more best friend dolls and done more best friend books. I'm not thrilled with all of them. We'll get to that, but I really wish they had made Singing Bird, because she's beautiful. Kirsten's best friend is Singing Bird. She is does it ever specify? No, it does not specify what tribe she's from, what people group she's from. But so there's our family and friends page, and you can see Kirsten's family and friends. And I love the illustrations in here. These are set to look more like the stage portraits that you see from the 1860s, really. 1860s and 1880s and on. And I think that is timely and fits with the plot of the book. So Singing Bird is a Native American, and it's not, like I said, it's not expressed which tribe she's from, but she's from some sort of migrating tribe in Minnesota. I don't know, but she moves, and that's the thing here. But this, you see Kirsten making friends, and you see her adjusting to school life, because school life in America is different than school life was in Sweden, and you see the culture shock and the language barrier. Her teacher comes to live in their household for a while, because that was another little snippet of some things pioneer teachers did. And Kirsten can't speak English, so she has to memorize a poem for school in English. And it's very hard for her to learn this new language when at home her family's only speaking Swedish, and at school she's only speaking English. And you see that language barrier and that buildup of, I don't just automatically know this. And I remember I connected with that because I had a friend in my 2nd grade class who came to America from China, and she had to learn English. And she showed all of us some Chinese characters and things, and she brought in different things from her culture and from her where she had moved from in China, and was showing us some more of that. But when she first arrived, she didn't say a word because she didn't know anything. And you see that shock and that fear in Kirsten, and it's precious. It really is. And then at the end of the book, Singing Bird has to move on. Her tribe has to move for the winter. It gets cold and they move to another place, and that's just what they do. And so she is left with this like this bittersweet sadness of, oh, my friend is leaving again, and I'm not going to see my friend. And but it's good. It's very good. Kirsten's Surprise are 6 American Girl books. We have a meet, and then a school story, and then our Christmas story. Again, Christmas. They're celebrating Christmas. For Kirsten, her holy day that she celebrates is St. Lucia Day. And every little girl in the 90s wanted this dress. We all wanted this dress. We all wanted the crown. We all wanted to celebrate St. Lucia. If you didn't have a drop of Swedish blood in you, you wanted to be Swedish so that you could celebrate St. Lucia Day. This book did it. That is why. And so my girls and I still talk about St. Lucia Day, and we've done little things over the years and stuff as our own little way of celebrating, because it's fun. And so Kirsten, each of the girls has a doll. They get a doll as part of their, they have it all, or they get it all as part of their Christmas story. Again, just showing that life, there are some consistencies and some things that are the same across generations and across cultures. Girls play with dolls. That's what they do. And so Kirsten had to leave her doll in a shop when they moved in the town, and they didn't have the money to take all of their luggage with them all the way to the farm's homestead. So they left this luggage in the town, and they were like, okay, we'll come back. We'll come back when we have time. We have to get to the homestead. We'll come back for it later. And so she and her papa have to go fetch the doll and all of their supplies, what they had to leave behind. And of course there's a blizzard and a snowstorm because it's Minnesota and it's winter. And it's this precious little story of Kirsten being brave and how she's helping her papa get through. And then at the end she gets her beautiful St. Lucia gown, and her mama makes the buns and the coffee, and she's able to have her Lucia Day celebration and serve her family. And again, it's just precious, and it's so sweet to see this family celebrating their culture and taking it to their new home in America and seeing how it all pieces together and works out, and it's gorgeous. I'm honestly surprised. Oh, in between Kirsten's Surprise and Happy Birthday, Kirsten, there are short stories, and each of these short stories has a different space where it falls. I don't remember the names of all of the short stories. I only have 2 of Kirsten's, but Kirsten's Promise falls in between Kirsten's Surprise and Kirsten Happy Birthday, Kirsten. So if you're getting these books and you want to use them in a curriculum, you want to use them with your kids and teach a timeline, that's where Kirsten's Promise falls, is between Kirsten's Surprise and Happy Birthday, Kirsten. This was originally released in an American Girl magazine in the late 90s. It had to have been before 97. 97 is the latest it would have been released, because I remember reading it in a specific house that we moved out of in 97. So 98. Early 98. So this was released in an American Girl magazine, and it was like a 4-page spread, I think, in the magazine, and the pictures were all spread out, and the text was all in there. And I don't know that they had intended to publish them in little books at the time, or if it was just, hey, we're going to continue, we hear people want more American Girl stories, we're going to put more in the magazines, because they had one for all of the main girls, had a story in the American Girl magazine at one point, all of the originals. And so Kirsten's Promise was in the American Girl magazine, and it's a story about Kirsten finding a little boy who's lost and who's alone and hurt, and his family's trying to go west. And this was really American Girl's way of tying in the Oregon Trail. And did they specify Oregon Trail in here? I was just reading it. Prairie, and the wagon train. They said wagon train. And this was American Girl's way of tying that in to the Kirsten books and like, look, see here, this is really the wagon train, this is what we're talking about. And it fits, it works, it's cute. She makes a promise, and she has to keep the little boy safe, though, above all else, and it's precious. And then what I love about these is that I don't remember if they had this in the magazine. Sorry, it's been a hot minute. I mean, I was like 10. But in the books, they have a craft at the end of each of the short stories. And it's a craft that, you know, you can make and how to do today. So, like, there's a little make a flower crown. And then, of course, the looking back section is there. I love the looking back section. That was my favorite part of the American Girl books. I would kind of sneak peeks as I was reading the books to get to the looking back section because I loved the history. I know that's not the popular and normal stance, but what can I say? That's who I am. So after you read Kirsten's Promise, then you can read Happy Birthday, Kirsten. And so our formula for our birthday stories take place in the springtime, March, April, May, or June, somewhere in there. Kirsten's birthday, I believe, is in June. She has the latest of the original American Girls. I think her birthday was the latest. And so our formula they take place in springtime, and we get a pet in our birthday stories, and then there's some sort of little adventure or something else exciting that happens. So Kirsten has they have a little barn cat, and the barn cat has kittens. Aren't those just precious? And her mama is pregnant. And so they talk about, you know, keeping what's gonna be like when the baby's born and how that's gonna happen. There's a tornado, which growing up in the Midwest, I grew up close to St. Louis. There were tornado drills and things were a thing that happened all the time. So that was fun and relatable. And then she has to ride on her little horse to get when Mama's there, when Mama's ready to have her baby. And it's all about just how, you know, when babies come, and sometimes it doesn't happen when we expect it necessarily, and what we want, it doesn't all work out the way we plan. But then there's this feeling of friendship, of her friends that she's made in America, not just her cousins, but their family's friends, all gathering around and working together to raise the barn. There's a barn raising party, and there's birthday presents, and it all ties in together, and it's beautiful. Kirsten turns 10. Our original girls all turn 10 on their birthday, and so sweet. And so this looking back is about birthdays and what celebrations were like on the homestead in the 1850s, and very sweet. And then our Saves the Day story, our little girls all like to get into an adventure of some kind. So Saves the Day takes place somewhere between June and August. Again, it kind of depends on when the birthday story takes place. That'll kind of push back or push it up when the Saves the Day story takes place. Hers culminates on the 4th of July, which is really cool. You see a 4th of July celebration, and for her to be talking in the 1850s about, oh, we're celebrating America's birthday and everything, and it's like, oh, this is a thing that we still celebrate, or we should, and we still, it all ties together, and it's fun. Obviously there's a little bear cub, and a little girl, we learn that where there's a bear cub, there's a mama bear close behind, and don't mess with the bear cubs. and she finds a bee tree, and she helps save her little brother who's getting into trouble with the bears and the dog, and it's you know, she tries so hard to do something good as a surprise for her family, but as tends to happen with 10-year-old little girls, her surprise for her family ends up in her getting into some trouble, and so her papa comes and helps her, and her brothers step in and take care, and then we see the culmination is at the town, and as they're selling the honey that she has helped collect, and it's fun. And then we learn about the American celebrations in the 1850s and how rural it was. And I've lived most of my life in rural communities, but the rural communities that even I've lived in are nothing compared to what it was in America in the 1850s, when you're talking like 10 houses. I mean, and that's a big city. That's a town. The town is 10 houses, and it's like a quarter mile to your nearest neighbor. It's huge. I can't. I that's not even a thing. I mean, I drove through towns that had like 250 people all the time, but still, those 250 people are more than what would have been in the city that Kirsten's going to for this celebration and everything. It's neat. It's a neat little reminder of how times have changed, and how our perspective of what is small now has changed drastically. So then here's Kirsten on the Trail. This is another short story. I believe I remember reading this one in the American Girl magazine. I do not know for sure, though. I mean, come on, it's been a few minutes. And but this one takes place after I love it when they say straight up, this one says, oh, it's March in Minnesota. So, oh, actually, this will probably take place after changes then, because it's March. Or before. This should probably take place before the birthday, too. Oops, I got that mixed up. I got it mixed up. I knew I was going to do that. Sorry. Because it's Kirsten's Promise takes place in October. Kirsten's Promise takes place in October. Yes, I got it mixed up. I'm sorry. Kirsten's Promise takes place in October. So it's Kirsten Saves the Day, then Kirsten's Promise, then changes. It's Kirsten's Surprise, then Kirsten on the Trail, then Happy Birthday, Kirsten. And or you can just read them in whatever order. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but I'm trying to help if you're homeschooling or if you want to know kind of the follow. So Kirsten on the Trail, Singing Bird comes back, and this was a big deal when this did come out in the magazine, because it was kind of a big deal when it was released, because Singing Bird is mentioned, like they're friends in Kirsten Learns a Lesson, but then like you don't really see her in the rest of the books. She'll casually mention that, oh yeah, I have this Indian friend, and that's how she words it. That's the word she uses. Is she uses the word Indian friend to describe her. I'm staying to the books, okay? I'm not sorry. Yes, and so, she. In Kirsten on the Trail, she sees Singing Bird again, and they're reunited, and it's nice that it has that little bit of closure-ish, but then also she has to come clean with her mama and explain that, no, I know this little Indian girl, and I know her family, and I've met her, and her brother gets involved, and it's really precious, really cute little story. Very good lesson for little girls about following rules and honesty with our parents and our elders, and what things can very quickly spiral if we're not honest, and if we're not upfront about everything that we're doing. And so really good little story. And then our art project in the back of this one is making a charm bag, which in the Kaya books they would refer to that as the parfleche, because that's what the Nez Perce people called them. And I have not attempted this. I don't know. It looks kind of scurry, but they recommend using felt, which I think is kind of a joke, because that is, I don't know how well you can see this, but that is leather. That is not felt. And so, but it doesn't, yeah, yep, yeah, I've not made many of these crafts because they're not things that we just had around the house when I was growing up, and so I have not tried them. Maybe we'll do that sometime. I don't know. We'll see. And then the final Kirsten book in the 6-book series is Changes for Kirsten. And I just want you to take a minute and look at this costume. I mean, okay, I love Kirsten's clothes. How did I not end up with Kirsten? Because I loved Kirsten's clothes. But does this not look like the warmest, comfiest, coziest dress ever? I still want that sweater and that skirt. I wear sweaters and skirts all the time. I'm wearing a sweater and a skirt right now. I would love to have that sweater and that skirt. They are just gorgeous, and they look so soft and comfy, cozy, and I love it. I mean, okay, the pioneers knew how to keep warm. We don't dress for the weather like people used to, but they knew it. They knew how to keep warm, and American Girl did a pretty good job of making the costumes period honest, while also period authentic, while also allowing the little girls to unbutton and button things and put them on and take them off the dolls and things like that. So in Changes for Kirsten, her family is checking traps as you would in the winter in Minnesota. You're going to be checking your traps and getting your fur pelts and everything. And they find a sweet little injured raccoon. So if your older boys are reading Rascal, which is a phenomenal book about a raccoon, and if you haven't read it with a box of tissues. Well, your little girls can read Changes for Kirsten, and your little boys can see how, having a raccoon might be a fun thing, because it ends up moderately okay in Rascal. There's no terrible tragedy. And your little girls can see how there can be a tragedy, and the little raccoon can cause a fire. And so Kirsten's cute little raccoon they're rescuing burns down their cabin. Quite literally burns down their cabin. And, I love how this is drawn. You see the trunk that the family has brought from Sweden, and you see the door, so the kids can get out safely, but it's still kind of scary. Beautiful, beautiful illustrations. And so they lose everything. And so now what do you do when you lose everything in the 1850s? And the family pulls together, and there's a happy ending. But in order to get to that happy ending, they have to find a dead body. That is a dead body right there. That is a dead body in an American Girl book. This man is Old Jack. He is dead. He's a trapper, and they find his hut. And since he's dead, they take all of his felts and all of his things that he has captured and trapped, and they use his furs and buy a new home. Still not sure that, I mean, he died without any family and everything, but that seems sketchy. Not something I would think about doing now for sure. But they talk about how pioneers, sometimes you'd move to an area for a while and then it would not work out, and then you'd move back. You'd move on to another area. So that's what the looking back is about. It's about the expansion and how lives were changing as we move closer to the Civil War, and as America opens up and more people come in and more cultures come in and things are changing in the country overall, and how sometimes people would come and stay and try to farm for a couple of years, and then it wouldn't work out, and they'd move on to another farm and another homestead, another whatever, until they settled. And sometimes they ended up going back to wherever they came from, because they couldn't make it work in America, and that was just how it was. So that's interesting and really neat there. My last Kirsten book that I'm going to talk about, and this is when I read the books with my girls, I always have them read the Welcome to the World last, because I feel like it just ties everything together. These books are gorgeous, and they were only published for a few years. Like, I think they started in 98. I feel like 98 was like the best. This was 99. Okay, so 99. I feel like 98, 99, like that was American Girl at its peak. So this book is huge. Again, coffee table size book for your 10-year-old. I mean, doesn't every 10-year-old need a coffee table book? And this is all about what life was really like in whatever period. They pull pictures, illustrations from the books and add those in. There's maps. this is a map detailing what Kirsten's journey was like across the Atlantic Ocean and even all the way over to the Minnesota Territory. Minnesota was not a state yet when Kirsten was there. And that's something that's not touched on in her books, actually, now that I think about it. They mention that in Josefina's, it's heavy-handed, that Josefina's was not a state yet. Felicity's was not a state yet. But they don't really mention it in Kirsten's books. I think those are the only two. Oh, in Hawaii. It's mentioned briefly in Nanea's book. But, because Nanea is set in Pearl Harbor, and Hawaii wasn't a state during when Pearl Harbor was attacked. But it's interesting. Like, I love, there's history, there's how do you build a home, and what does a house look like? What rooms do they have, and what can you expect, and what are weddings like? What's family life like? And there's illustrations there's pictures. So, like, this is the Dakota, which I think, I think that's who, her little singing bird, her Native American friend, I believe, was, right, might have been Dakota. Yep, singing birds people, the Dakota. And so, these are hand-drawn illustrations, but then there's also pictures, images of, artifacts, and there's photographs, and there's, folk tales and legends in some of them, but each, it all ties into what each girl's period would be like, and what would they have found. And then the conclusion is a beautiful tale, a beautiful conclusion of how would America have changed as these girls were growing up. So, like, by the time Kirsten was 17, she probably would have been married. She and her husband might have decided to homestead in the Wild West. They might have packed up all their precious belongings and headed west for places like the Nebraska Territory, Oregon, or California. Names that sounded as strange to Kirsten as Minnesota once had. And so, it kind of gives you this idea of what would have happened if the stories had continued. And I love that. I still wish that they would do a historical, like, kind of tie some of the historical characters in together more, just to kind of, like, merge that history. I know that the girl of the year is Samantha's great-great-granddaughter, and I think that's really cute, and I'm resisting the urge to just buy the girl of the year because she's Samantha's great-great-granddaughter. I know that, but I wish they did it with the historical characters, because tying that history together, I think it would just be a fun little, hey, we recognize that your moms love this, and that now you love this too. But that is it. Those are my Kirsten books. I believe I have a craft book and a cookbook as well, but those would be a whole nother thing. So let me know in the comments below what your favorite Kirsten book was, if you read the Kirsten books. Let me know if you've read these Welcome to the World books, or if you've read the short story books. And there's more short stories than what I own. I do not own all of her short stories. Like I said, there's a mystery book. If you read the mystery, let me know what you think of it. I didn't care for it, so I didn't keep it. And that's just how I roll. But if Kirsten wasn't your favorite, let me know who was, and we will probably get to her eventually. Give me time. So, thank you so much for chatting with me about American Girl, and we will be back to talk about more later. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and comment in the comment section below. Have a great day. Happy reading.